Hello everyone, so welcome back to Janny Thermo Crazy Kitchen. Today I want to share with you a couple of quick tips and tricks about the scales. So often we hear that people having trouble with their scales, and there is some really quick, easy tips and tricks where you can check whether your scales are working okay or not. And if you do have any issues, I'm going to show you how easily you can resolve them. So let's dive in. All right, so first tip for you is to understand how your scales are actually working and where they are placed in your Thermomix. So I want to show you that, and you can do the same thing with your machine. You can just hold the machine and make sure the bowl doesn't fall out, and turn it on its backside. So what you can see here, these 3 feet, they are actually your scales, the built-in scales. So you want to protect these 3 feet with your life, okay? So never let anyone come closer to these 3 feet. So that's where the major issues usually remains. So from time to time also it's a good idea to clean your Thermomix here on the bottom. But if you do have if you notice any jumping in the scales, then it's usually that something got underneath these feet. So it's a good idea to just wipe them off with a damp cloth from time to time, and make sure you put your machine on a flat level surface, which is also clean. So tip number 2 was actually already the flat level surface. I know some people prefer to have their Thermomix standing on a sliding board, which is absolutely okay, as long as you stand next to the machine and you always have an eye on it when the machine's operating. I have seen a couple of machines coming, including the whole board, and just moving slowly off the kitchen bench. However, if you prefer to have your Thermomix on a sliding board, then again, because the boards are designed to move, that can also have an impact on the scales. So if your scales are jumping, then have a look. If it's a wooden board, if it's a little bit uneven also, this will have an impact on your scales. So coming to my next tip, always a good idea to check the cable that's in the back. So you can retract the cable, so you can pull it out all the way until there is a little red mark here, a little red marker there. So this is roughly about 1 meter or so long. And just make sure when you do this, the weighing, that there is no pressure on the cable. And if you don't meet the cable, you can also pull it back into the machine to the length that you need it. Why would I recommend that? First of all, sometimes what can happen when the cable is too long, it tends to go underneath like that. And again, having this obstructing the machine, it can have an impact on your weighing results. So my next tip would be that you never drag the machine over the surface. So always when you want to move it and you don't have it on a sliding board, always make sure you lift the machine before you move it around. That's what this little handle is for, and also it's easy to lift it up and just move it back and forth like this. If you would drag the machine with the feet on, what would happen over time, there is a build-up for this rubber, and that will result in uneven feet. And again, that will make your scales jump up and down. So what else could happen is just when you bring up the scales, you want to check them from time to time whether they're still working. So with the TM6, we do have 1 gram increment scales. And the way we are checking that, if you bring up the scales here and you tear them back to 0, you want to have an item that you know roughly the weight of for. So the TM6 measuring cup should weigh between 80 and 85 grams. Here we go, mine weighs 83 grams. So that tells me the scales are working perfectly in order. So if everything fails, from time to time, it's reasonable that we do a factory reset for our machine. After all, it's a very powerful computer in here. And the way to do that is basically to clear the cache, if you so will. And the way to do that is, first of all, we can go into the menu here, into the settings. And in the settings, we scroll all the way here to the bottom of the menu, and it says factory reset. So when we do that, we get asked if we want to do that. And here we can then prompt for the reset. So once you've done your factory reset and the machine has rebooted, I want you to turn it off. So the way we're turning it off is just pressing that dial and waiting for the machine to shut down. And once it's turned off on a machine, I want you then to actually take it away from the power point. And leave it sitting there for at least 10 minutes, best overnight, just to make sure the machine gets a complete reset of the cache. And that should resolve the problem if that was the problem. So should you still experience issues with your scales after you have done everything, I've checked everything that I told you in this video, and you can still see your scales are jumping up and down, just like the one is doing here. There is one more thing that I need you to check before we call in service for you. And this is just that you don't have a bag of ingredients being a little bit too close besides your machine whilst you're doing this, because you can see just having the bag standing here has already an impact on the scales. So putting them away, going back to tare that to 0, and you can see my scales are no longer jumping up and down. Thanks again for joining me today, and I hope you find these tips and tricks about resolving your potential scales issue helpful. And yeah, I hope I see you next time. Bye for now. So thanks for joining me today. Stop it. All right, try it again. All right, thanks for joining me today. I hope you found this. This dog. Stop it.